Thorny, as we venture into the R&R, two truths are consistent. We love our dear Montana State, and we love great beer. And you know who else feels the same? Jeremiah Johnson Brewing. Brewed in the heart of Montana in downtown Great Falls, Jeremiah Johnson takes Montana's finest ingredients to craft some of Montana's favorite beers. And now, Jeremiah Johnson's second tap room is open in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Their Citra IPA is probably one of my favorites. But we all know, Thorny, you're not the hop lover I am. You're more of a mountain man Scotch ale.
Well, Foley, I'm certainly not a mountain man, but you are right. I do love their Mountain Man Scotch Ale. But come game day, you and I are both cracking their Golden Bobcat Pale Ale. So when you're looking for a quality craft beer brewed with Montana roots, a relaxing tap room, or just a six-pack to take to your favorite Bobcat tailgate, Jeremiah Johnson delivers. Make your next beer a Jeremiah Johnson, and as always, go Cats.
Why are we still worried about this? Of course I'm worried about this because I love Jeff Choate. Like, I'm 2 steps away from getting a Jeff Choate tattoo on my arm. Welcome everybody to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're 2 dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy it. Welcome back, Bobcat fans. Thanks for joining us. We are the Ryans of the R&R Catcast, the Montana State affiliate of the Big Sky Podcast Network, brought to you by Jeremiah Johnson Brewing, brewed in the heart of Montana, downtown Great Falls, and another operation over here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Thorny, how are you doing, buddy?
You're getting so good at that slick little intro we came up with there.
Been practicing.
That was only take 2 this time. Not bad.
Nice, man.
I'm doing pretty good, especially this big sigh of relief over here from Bobcat Nation. So I'm doing pretty good tonight. In fact, that's the reason we're here talking. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm well. It's a rainy winter over here in Washington, and so I haven't seen the sun in probably a month, 2 months. It feels like it. So I'm jonesing for some sun, but spring's coming, so we're hopeful.
Man, that's how it has been over here. We moved. I told you we moved, and right before Christmas, and it's been like nothing but rain up here. It snowed after a few days that we were here, and then after that, it melted off after like 2 days, and it's just been rain. Super annoying. Getting pretty tired of it.
Yeah. Well, at least we're not shoveling, so that's one thing.
That is always positive, I guess.
Right on, man. Well, Ryan and I, we're going to talk to you today about the big news. Jeff Choate not being hired at Boise State.
The non-news news.
Oh, man. 2 weeks of just sweating and checking Twitter. We'll talk about that. We actually will dip our toe into the basketball that is Montana State.
Yep. We're going to give it a shot here. Big disclaimer. We're not huge basketball guys in terms of at least the ability to actually watch very much basketball. So we're going to give it a shot, though, because why not?
And finally, we will answer your Golden Coolie questions. We have a couple that we compiled there. And so that's the show outlook. But before we get into any of that good stuff, we will talk about what we are drinking tonight. Thorny, what's on tap?
So I'm pretty excited. One thing I forgot to mention about when you asked how I was doing, I'm pretty ecstatic because the Rams won. Big Rams fan over here, so I was pretty stoked about the Rams beating the Seahawks. Nothing better as a Rams fan than knocking the Seahawks out of the playoffs. Woo, pretty awesome. But the reason I'm mentioning is that because I've been drinking beer on and off since that game started at 1:40 p.m. So didn't really feel like drinking a beer right now. So I'm actually drinking a tea, but I spiked it with Bailey's and whiskey. I think it might actually have a name. I don't know what it is, but the concoction I come up with sometimes where I'm a little over drinking beer. I'm a little tired, and this guy, my little pick me up for the show. So that's what I got.
Day drinker, man.
Hey, it's playoff football. What do you expect me here, right?
That's a good point. It's the first weekend of playoff football. Your team knocked off your rival in their hometown That's got to feel good.
That was amazing.
Okay. I am drinking a gold medal Great American Beer Festival IPA, and it happens to be brewed 10 minutes from my house. Perry Street Brewery, simply named IPA. I
You
mean,
were
I
telling me
feel
the
like
name of it's just IPA.
it's just IPA. I feel it's like a big deal. 2020 got named the gold medal for the Great American Beer Festival. That's like the biggest beer festival, the biggest like notoriety as far as beer festivals go, as far as I know. So yeah, they won the gold medal in the American style IPA, and that's pretty cool. So, I mean, it's been there ever since I moved to Spokane. The IPA has not changed. It's good. I didn't know it was gold medal, good, but it's pretty good. So I got a crowler of it, a 32-ounce can of it on Friday before I came home. So poured my wife the first little cup of it, and then I snuck downstairs for the podcast, and I got the rest sitting over here.
I was going to my next question is, do you ever just crack the crowler and just drink out of it? I think it's just a big, huge can.
I've never done that. No, with those, I always pour it in a glass. So
You're so refined. You're also like a dad. And
so fancy.
Yeah. Hey, congratulations on your delicious IPA beer, though, by the way. Gold medal. It's pretty cool. Like you took me there when I was in Spokane. It's a cool little place. I'm happy for a little place like that to get some notoriety.
Yeah, that is really cool, man. Well, yep, I will enjoy this IPA, but let's get right into men's basketball. So we thought we would just go over some just kind of the record, what they're doing right now. And I know, Thorny, you have been more an observer of basketball than I have. So we'll let you get into the particulars thereafter. But I'll give you just their overall status. Right now, they're 5-3. We just came off the weekend where we won 2 games against Northern Colorado down in Greeley. And that was the first time we had done that since 2007. But we've only played those 2 conference games because our other 2 conference games against Southern Utah were canceled due to COVID. We started out pretty good. We had a win against UNLV. We lost against Pacific. And then we scheduled Yellowstone Christian, which we really waxed them, but you would have expected that, 114-74. Our worst loss came thereafter against Washington State, which Washington State's no slouch this year. And then, so we had a game against Portland, a close loss there, which was an exciting game to listen to. I think that one went into overtime, or maybe was it double overtime? Do you remember that, Ryan?
Which one?
Portland?
No, it didn't go in overtime.
Oh, I thought that was the one where, no, that was Pacific, maybe. Yeah, okay. Excuse me.
Yeah, Pacific
Wrong
was
game.
definitely overtime, yeah.
And then that went into the drought before we played Southern Utah. So we scheduled Montana Western in there, had a nice win against them. And then that led us into this weekend, January 7th, January 7th, now in today, January 9th.
Yeah, it's been kind of a up and down year a little bit, but you can tell that Danny Sprinkle is kind of still trying to figure out his lineup, his rotation. I think he's settling in on it here in the last few games, and I think that's why we're able to put Northern Colorado away twice, is because kind of the lineup we've been settled on. But he started off like one of the better wins I can remember for a while. At least I haven't actually followed UNLV since we beat them, but it was a good win at the time. They were pretty highly regarded. I have no idea what's happened to that squad since we played them, because I just don't follow the college basketball like I follow football. But then we go to Pacific and lose the tough overtime game there. And then the real kind of disappointing one was a little bit the Washington State one, because our Big Sky schools had played them and they had hung pretty tough with them. And Eastern Washington lost by a couple, and they were like losing, like half their team was out with COVID or something. They only had like 7 or 8 guys in the rotation. So I was going to that game with a little higher hopes than losing by, 28 or whatever. Not the finest moment, but these things happen. Basketball is such a sport where you can get blown out one game and it really, that's just doesn't really mean a whole lot necessarily. You can have these weird write-off games in college basketball in particular. But I was really excited the way that we rolled into conference and beat Northern Colorado twice on the road, who had just come off beating the Grizz, and after losing to the Grizz with, I think they beat the Grizz by like 1 and then lost by 1 or 2. Either way, it was like 1 possession on both sides of it. So it's really exciting to see us kind of take shape. I think Sprinkle has kind of settled on a lineup. He seems to be Abdul Muhammad is in the starting lineup now. Xavier Bishop. Then it's Amin Adamu and Jabril Bello. And who am I missing? My goodness.
Bora?
Is Fernandez starting? I don't think Fernandez is starting. That's Patterson was starting a lot. Tyler Patterson was starting a lot. But
freshman.
I really like how the team has come along. I love the fact that we are good on the perimeter. The team is coming together a lot more, and we have a good perimeter shooting. And we just keep feeding Jabril Bello down low because just feed the big dog because he is a 2-handed dunking machine. I read a stat. He's got like 40 some odd dunks over the last couple seasons. It's pretty entertaining to watch him do it. And that was what was so impressive about our victory against Northern Colorado yesterday. Or was it? That was today. My goodness, I am so completely lost now on time with COVID and working from home. But he had a pretty poor game. He got into foul trouble. Usually when Bello gets into foul trouble, that means pretty bad things for the Bobcats. But we were able to cobble together a run in the second half like we did in the first game against Northern Colorado. Like went on like a 19-2 run or something, where we did something similar in this game with Bello in foul trouble. Bello not really even getting into rhythm. And I'm not sure he even scored. He might have made a free throw or 2, but he had a chance to put the game away at the very end. We were up by 3, and he went to the line and he missed both free throws. And then Northern Colorado went down and scored a 3-pointer to send into overtime. So not Bello's best game, but it is a good sign for the Bobcats that other guys can step up and really, really propel the team and keep the things going. Amin Adamu had probably his best game I've ever seen him play against Northern Colorado. So it's just, I like seeing the team come together. And when one guy isn't performing that you need, there's a lot more guys stepping up maybe this year than maybe last year or in the past. So overall, I think the team is really headed in the right direction. I do watch a lot of Bobcat basketball. I'm really excited to see the team progress forward.
And what's interesting when I'm looking at the Big Sky standings right now, Montana State is slated in 3rd. We've only played 2 conference games. Idaho, who is currently last, has played 6 conference games. They're 0-6 in there. And Montana is just above them. They're 1-3 in conference games. So the whole COVID thing is just crazy. Eastern Washington's only played 1 conference game. So the inequity of just games played is really interesting to look at. And I know you need to get to 10 of them in order to be qualified for the Big Sky tournament. So it'll be a race to get there. Hopefully all teams can qualify.
Yeah, that would be kind of a sad thing to have a team get to like 9 games or something like that and be like, what if you were like 9-0 and you couldn't participate in the playoffs because you're 9-0? Like, I don't. Is that like a division-wide mandate, or is that like a Big Sky Conference thing?
I think it's a Big Sky Conference thing.
Yeah, just to get into the tournament.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be pretty disappointing. But it's a very interesting year with COVID and so many teams canceling and having players missing time and stuff. Like, it's just going to be a weird year like that, and which is why even the preseason out of conference games are even more less important, if you will. Like, just so much of it is scheduled because you couldn't find another team, and you're still trying to figure out your lineup in a lot of these games anyway. But then this year, that's only more pronounced. So it's just been a really weird year for COVID. But I actually think the Cats have a pretty good shot with the way I've seen them playing lately to possibly get their way into that tournament. So far, I'm looking at the schedule here. I
have 16 games left right
16 games left. So it's super early. This wouldn't be the first time the Cats started like 4-0, 6-0, and then just completely face planted. But it's also really weird too. Like, let's talk a second about playing the same team twice in like 2 days.
Yeah, that is odd.
Sprinkle was talking about that, how like one team one night, one team wins by 18, and the next night, the other team wins by 20.
Yeah, it's the coach who's willing to put in the extra time and sleepless night and stay up and fix some things, right?
It's like the ultimate halftime adjustment, right?
It's the overnight adjustment. The one and it for most of it too. It's like this week we have Portland State coming into town. I think Portland State just took a loss against Northwest Nazarene out of Nampa. I used to live in Nampa. That's not a good loss for Portland State, but they're going to play us in Bozeman on Thursday and Saturday, January 14th, January 16th. And I mentioned that because I look at Northern Arizona. We're going to go to Northern Arizona's in coming to town thereafter. But then at the end of this month, we play the Grizz, but we don't play the Grizz in Missoula twice. They split. So
yeah, that's the only one where it's two locations. But that's because we're so close, I'm sure.
I think, but I don't know if the Grizz might actually do this with Weber or not Weber, with Eastern as well. And I believe that was because of just scheduling. They didn't want to, they want to give the Cats and the Grizz, equal footing on that rival game. So, but after the Grizz, we head over to Weber, and then we play Eastern at home. I don't feel like we've beaten Eastern in a men's sporting event in a decade. It feels like
it does feel like that.
Football or basketball, it just feels like we get waxed by Eastern Washington. And it's, man, I went to the Eastern game over here in Cheney last year, and it was one of our worst losses, and I just left steaming. I'm so pissed. I hate those guys. It's just I'm so tired of losing to Eastern Washington. So, but hope that's in Bozeman. Hopefully that goes well. But again, that I mentioned it briefly. The February and Montana State basketball has been known to have this, quote unquote swoon in February. Like you said, we will start off hot and then just go in the dumpster fire mode in February. And largely that was in past coaching regimes. And I don't think Danny Sprinkle has any inkling to do that. And last year we actually improved through February, so that was nice. But
we took 3 straight losses towards the end of February last year, including at Sacramento State, 81-52. So it's crazy. Coulter had this whole big segment about, or no, that was on the Grizz fan pod, where he talked about how the Bobcats are basically a 500 team, and we've only finished one game above or one game below 500 for we've only done that. Outside of that, we've only done better than that one time, in the last 20 years.
That's horrible.
We haven't been worse. We haven't, but only done one better, and that was the 2009, where somehow we caught fire and made it all the way to the Big Sky Conference Championship game. It's crazy though, and last year, 16-15. It's just I'm tired of seeing the Bobcats be 500 and everything. So I'm really hoping, even with the COVID year and the weird schedule, it's gonna be hard to kind of bust above that when you're playing the same team twice in 2 days. But I'm optimistic that with the lineup settling and Sprinkle kind of getting the hang of things, that this could be the year. And we got some solid players, man. Xavier Bishop, he is a fun kid to watch. I know Sprinkle was hyping him up you're about Frey was a special player, you're gonna miss him, but Bobcat fans, you're really gonna like Bishop, and I certainly do so far. He's fun to watch.
Well, if we can split with Montana, that would be a huge win. And if we can take one from Eastern, I'm feeling pretty good about us.
All right. Well, let's hope that happens, man. I agree. It's been too long since we've been at Eastern that much, and it's been too long since we've had a real chance to go anywhere in the tournament.
So let's turn over New Rock on the R&R. We're going to actually talk about women's basketball for a brief moment. The women's team is 4-4 right now, so they're a perfect 500, 2-2 in conference, or excuse me, 1-1 in conference. They split against UNCU, Northern Colorado University, University of Knowledge, whatever. I'm going to stop talking about that. This weekend, so they won on Thursday, and then they lost today. And that was their first conference play right there. They had a loss against South Dakota State. That was a 67-82. They did beat Portland. They lost to Utah, lost to BYU early on in the year. And then yeah. So they're at 500 right now, but they're playing a ton of freshmen. An exciting team, a team that's getting better by all accounts. From what I'm seeing, I haven't watched a lot, but I do know we're young. And Trisha Binford, I mean, she's a proven commodity. She's probably the top coach in the Big Sky for sure. So I'm excited to see where they head down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The team is super young. They have some big time talent on there, but I'm looking at the roster. I mean, we got freshman, sophomore, freshman. I mean, even Darian White is still only just a sophomore. If you're not familiar with Darian White, she is our superstar point guard. Highly recommend watching women's basketball. She's worth the price of admission right there. She's super fun to watch. But we got some other players coming along. I think Cola Bad Bear is going to be, continue to improve throughout the year. I'm really impressed with the freshman Caitlin Lamardo. I think she's going to be a good player. We got the senior stalwart Tori Martell, like one of the few seniors on the team. In fact, maybe the only senior on the team. So I think that the Lady Cats are gonna, they're gonna get together. They're young. They took a hard loss here today against Northern Colorado, but it's gonna be really hard to beat teams twice in this weird playing a team twice in 3 days scenario. And then I mean, you said it best too. Like Trisha Binford, I think is one of the best coaches in the Big Sky, if not the best coach in the Big Sky. So I have no doubts that they're going to continue to improve, and the freshmen and as the team plays more and more together. It's interesting because the men's team, they're more experienced in terms of like juniors and seniors and stuff like that, but they're just as equally new to playing with each other with transfers and a lot more transfers. And the women's team is just more freshmen. So it's that same situation where you're trying to gel and learn kind of the best rotations. But the added bonus of freshmen also get a lot better just because you're new to the program, you're new to college basketball. So you're just going to continue to get better, and you're going to continue to get better as a team. So I think the women are going to be playing some pretty good basketball here towards the end of the season.
Thorny
football on the mind, apparently.
So how short do you feel when you go down through the roster and you're seeing all these ladies that are 6'1", 6'2", 6'1", 6 foot? And I'm a solid 6'6.5". But I know that these girls would just tower above me and just dominate me on the glass. So it's you think about that stuff. I think about getting just worked over by these women playing one-on-one. That's where my mind is at.
I wouldn't want to try and guard anybody on any college team, men or women. I would look pretty bad pretty fast.
Yeah, let's lace them up. Let's try it. I'm game.
I am like open gym Wednesday kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I do okay. Sometimes I do not.
If we had a beer league, we're in, right?
Oh man, I can't imagine trying to play basketball with any sort of beer related activities.
Did you ever
softball?
Play,
yes. Basketball, no.
How many years did you play softball?
I think I did 3 seasons in Helena. Yeah, maybe 3 seasons. We were terrible, absolutely terrible. I should never be in the top 3 players on any softball team ever, but I was. I was arguably maybe the best player, and that's not good. All right, I'm not. Baseball is like my 4th sport that I'm okay at, way down the list. Like I'm relatively athletic, and I can pick up any sport and not be complete garbage at it, but I shouldn't be anywhere near the best softball player on the team. I end up having to pitch. That tells you everything right there.
Gosh, pitching in slow pitch softball is just terrifying.
It's a little terrifying. I got pretty good at it, but it's always like it's a little rush. You are alert, that's for sure.
Gosh, man, yeah. No, we played over in Great Falls quite a few years, and it was some of my favorite memories. It was just some of the best guys I know. So yeah, we don't need to go down that route, but I think that's a good time to transition over into the big news that happened this week with Jeff Choate and Boise State. What do you think about that?
Let's get into it. That's why we're really here, right? That's all Bobcat fans have been probably occupying your thoughts day and night. Choate, Jeff Choate, what's he gonna do?
Choate Watch 2020, right?
Choate watch.
Well, we
Choate
can
Mentum.
we can all before we even get into this, can I just tell you like the amount of energy and nerves and anxiousness that it caused me over the last 2 weeks, and just the frustration with the entity that is Boise State. I was like, come on, get your stuff together. Not a good time to be searching for an AD. Let's get this thing over. I just give me the facts. I just need to know so I can process and move on with my life.
I don't think it was in a particularly long process or anything, especially when they had to hire an AD and a coach, but it felt like forever as a person who, the coach that you're a fan of is part of the pool. Yeah, it felt like forever, but I don't think it was really actually that slow of a process.
You're wrong. It was an eon. It was an eon in my life.
Fair enough.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. So every morning I get up and I'll just the last 2 weeks, man. Every morning when I get up, I would go check my phone, sit down, turn off the fan. By the way, if you're not sleeping with the fan, you're missing out. Turn off the fan, but get ready to go on my morning run. But the very first thing I would do is check the weather, so what I know what to wear, and then check to see if Jeff Choate was hired. And then it just never happened. And so I would go to work and I would teach the math lessons I'm teaching, and then in between math lessons, I open up the Twitter, refresh. Nope. It was just never ending until Friday. And then it was just like, and then even when he got hired, you're like, okay, is he going to go for the DC? Now, what about Oregon DC? And so and then you go down the rabbit hole, and then Jeff Choate comes out with his tweet. And then,
do you want to read that tweet? Do you have it in front of you by chance?
I don't. I should have, but I don't have that. It started out, or if you want to search that out, I'll let you go for it. But
I can read it here. I wanted to read that here. I'm sure everyone's seen it by now, but yesterday, Choate came out and said, "God is good. I'm so thankful for all the love and support I've received over the past several weeks. While I'm appreciative to have had the opportunity to engage with Boise State, I'm thankful to be the head coach at Montana State University. #unfinished business. #go Cats go." There you go. So that's what Jeff Choate, as far as I know, that's the only thing he said about the whole process. I know there was a team meeting, rumors of the team meeting yesterday, which was before the coaching hire was announced. So people are like, oh man, is he meeting with the players to tell them I'm out? Is he meeting with them to say, just to tell them, I'm sticking around and to be transparent? So I think that's the only thing he said so far. But yeah, that was Jeff Choate's response. Statement, I guess.
And you and I had texted about that. You read that in a different tone than I did. You read that more in a negative light, and I read that where it was like, well, man, unfinished business, let's go. So
I don't know. Jeff Choate doesn't do a lot of tweeting, so maybe I'm just like read into it. Now reading it now, I don't really feel the way I did, but yeah, I kind of read that as like I don't know. He felt slighted by it or unhappy about the whole ordeal. Like, I don't know. It just didn't strike me as like he's super. It just seemed like he was a little bit down, maybe too. Which of course he is. He it's his dream job potentially, and he didn't get the job. But I don't know. Just didn't strike me as. He didn't fire me up like it did you, I guess.
Yeah, when I read it, I was like, "Sweet, let's go." So basically, we just need Jeff Choate to read his tweets out loud so we can hear his inflection, so we don't have to parse it out and discuss how we feel.
Yeah, maybe it's because I read it in my own boring ass voice, and that's why I bored myself reading it. Maybe that's my problem. There's some people you can like read words and like you can perfectly hear it in their voice. For some reason, I don't do that with Choate. I don't know why. I can envision exactly what Choate sounds like, but I read it definitely not in Jeff Choate's voice or anything. So maybe that's where I went wrong.
Right on. So Thorny, we tasked you with going back and compiling the timeline. That was the whole Jeff Choate, what I call the Jeff Choate Watch 2020. Why don't you give us a rundown of what happened when, and then we'll bounce from there.
Yeah, kind of given narrowed it down to stuff that kind of mattered. There's a whole bunch of misinformation along this entire process. People saying like, yeah, hire's going to happen 24 to 48 hours. That was like 2 weeks ago. So I read the hire will happen soon multiple times. So,
Done deal.
done
I
deals.
heard that one. Yeah, I heard
It's
that
this
one.
guy. It's that guy. Yep, it's already done. So yeah, I mean, it was all over the place. But it all started I think December 22nd. The first time I heard anything about it, you texted me that Brian Harsin? I don't even know his name, but the coach at Boise State is expected to sign with Auburn. And you asked me like, what do I feel about that? And I was like, well, sucks to be that guy. It's a terrible job to go to Auburn. And you're like, well, no, man, I'm talking about like Jeff Choate. I'm like, oh. I'm thinking is like, I don't care about Boise State's coach going to Auburn. I wouldn't want to coach at Auburn, but then that makes more sense. I got you. So that's when things like started clicking. Like, oh man, he would totally go for that job. The one job I was like more nervous than any of Jeff Choate going for and potentially getting head coach at Boise State. So then the next day, sources on Twitter saying Jeff Choate's going to interview for the job. There's tons of other names at this point. Andy Avalos, the guy who ended up getting it. I don't know if it's Avalos or Avalos. I have no idea to say his name. Jim Mora's name came up from some people. Dirk Cotter, Kellen Moore, all over the place. People speculating at this point. Those are the names I felt most confident putting on my timeline as names that had popped up the most. Jim Moore's probably the longest shot on that thing. Yeah, Jim Moore was all over the Boise State board for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah, playoffs, Jim Moore.
Oh my gosh.
How old is Jim Moore's got to be like 90.
Keep going. It's good.
So then when it's a little quiet for a few days here, and that's where probably your frustration is starting to mount at this point. I didn't hear much until December 26th, day after Christmas. Kellen Moore kind of comes as the front runner. You've heard his name the most. The Boise fans are most excited about him. But Choate's still hanging around, and Andy Avalos is still being discussed. But Kellen Moore's kind of the main man, and then nothing happens here for almost a whole week. Yeah, pretty brutal. Like, it was not a fun end. I remember texting you like, if Choate gets hired before the year's over, 2020 officially worst year in history, but it didn't happen. I wasn't even really aware at this point that Boise State was also looking for an athletic director.
Yeah, that was unbeknownst to me.
So it wasn't even until January 2nd that Jeremiah Dickey, who was at Baylor at the time, is the top candidate for the athletic director. And the next day it's made official he is hired as the athletic director. And of course, I'm thinking, does this guy have any connection with Choate? I know Choate coached at, what was it, Tulsa or is UTEP? Is UTEP? It's like, does he know this guy from Texas football? It's like, he's going to hire him.
Well, it should be noted that before Dickey was hired, the president of BSU, Dr. Trump, asked Chris Peterson to help her engage in this hiring process. Yes. And of course, we know that Chris Peterson is a huge fan of Jeff Choate and is a big supporter of Jeff Choate and vice versa, right? Jeff Choate comes from the Chris Peterson tree. And so Jeff Choate, in this whole time, is getting direct support, not only from Chris Peterson, but from past players. Gerald Alexander, couple guys I can't think of right now, but yeah,
there was a guy, Hunter White, and I don't know. He was a player, I assume. He was like started the petition. I'm pretty sure there's like a player's petition to get Jeff Choate hired. He was on there just pumping up Choate left and right on Twitter. I actually ended up following him because he seemed like a guy who would actually know when he was hired and make an announcement. So I was following him, and he was just like Choate all day, all long. I was like, dude, stop.
Yeah. And at the same time, when you and I, like, we went down the rabbit hole of the Boise State fan board, and you're trying to mine information out of that thing. Oh my God. Right. Like, the only thing that came clear to me was they did not want Jeff Choate. They wanted Kellen Moore, or Andy Avalos. That was the two things, but they did not want Jeff Choate. And at the same time, you come back to the Montana State board, like Bobcat Nation or just Montana State Twitter in general. People are like, oh my gosh, please, Choate, just stay. So there was this chasm between like Boise State fans and Montana State fans. We both wanted the same thing, which turned out to be good in the long run. But continue on.
So
we're doing great.
Yeah. So about this time, I think the same time that Kellen Moore It's still January 2nd here. At least that's what I have here. He makes the official announcement he will not be pursuing the job. He ends up resigning a contract with the Cowboys. But like later that day, Troy Aikman, of all people to be involved in this story, he leaks that Kellen Moore was ready to sign, but he was concerned about the university's overall commitment to football, which is very surprising to hear from a university like from Boise State. So it sounds like Moore was going to take the job, had some questions about the commitment and backed out. Who knows if that's true or not? He was just parlaying all this into a permanent a pay upgrade at with the Dallas Cowboys. But so Moore's out. Let's see. Then we got really the next thing that's need to note is the fourth. Hawks 86 on Bobcat Nation reports that Leon Costello and Jeremiah Dickey are now following each other on Twitter.
OMG.
So we got some Twitter drama there, which I mean it's noteworthy. Why on earth would Leon Costello follow Jeremiah Dickey if it wasn't anything serious? Like it would make no sense. So
what does that even mean, though? Like, okay, we followed each other on Twitter. Is like that some sort of cryptic message that Bobcat fans should be like concerned about at that moment?
Not necessarily, but like I said, why would he otherwise? Unless he's doing it to. I know
they talked on the phone because of course Jeff Choate interviewed, and so they're like, okay, I'll give you a follow. Okay, yeah, I'll follow you back. Whatever.
Well,
kind of deal. Like
I do know that on Twitter, typically people don't have it set up so you can private message them unless you're following them and they're following you. You have to be like double follow. So unless they were, I doubt a lot of this conversation happened on Twitter, but it was definitely a good catch by Hawks. I give him credit for that one. So many people like do that. Like the coaches are following this kid on Twitter. Maybe we're going to sign him. Like I don't put a whole lot of stock into that kind of stuff, but I find it entertaining.
Second only to the people who follow the flight patterns of private jets going to and from Boise to Bozeman, to and from Boise to Eugene. I thought that was great. I love that.
Yeah, what a scoop. And that's later on in the timeline, but that was like a reporter for some Boise State or Idaho Statesman, some paper outfit down there was the one who actually found that out. And then like drove to like the airport and was like trying to take pictures, seeing if when he got back to Boise, if any coaches, if Choate or Avalos is getting off the plane. It's like, oh, this is too much. And yet I'm eating it up, but please stop. Please, somebody just hire somebody. and at some point you're just like, I don't, just hire, say yes or no, Choate. I don't, we need closure. But all right, after that's amazing Snoop detective work by Hawks 86, January 5th, Sports Illustrated reports that Florida offensive coordinator Brian Johnson is going to interview, and the Mountain West Wire also reports that Graham Harrell, USC offensive coordinator, will interview, which of course gets the Boise State faithful fired up because they're like, all right, now we got all these names out there. Choate hopefully is now bumping way down because he was not popular at this time at all. He never really did get very popular, but most of the talking about Choate on the boards had been more dismissive than anything. And that just continued to be the case at this point. I actually blew my 24/7 free trial to join the VIP Boise State message board. Like, all right, maybe there's some better information in here than just their free one. And there's just more garbage. A bunch of people who claim to know stuff, which most of it didn't turn out. One guy did say way back when that like Moore turned the job down. Oregon's saying that Andy's gonna take the job, and that was like over a week and a half ago. But you throw a bunch, you throw enough crap on the wall, someone's gonna stick.
Meanwhile, Gerald Alexander, like every day, putting out like a confirmation tweet about Jeff Choate. Jeff Choate's this. Jeff Choate's that. He's the guy. But I'm gonna stick by this. I'm just like screaming at my phone, looking at this, like, shut up, Gerald. Just shut up. None of this.
I know.
Silence.
I don't know at what point either. The other people in the Big Sky Podcast Network started the hashtag Choate-mentum.
Oh my gosh.
Trying to get Choate hired, trying to pump him up, be good references for him.
We're going to talk about that in the Golden Coolie questions. I'm going to save my blood is just okay. Just move on.
This is January 6th now, so we're getting pretty close to the current timeline. Football Scoop reports that Choate may actually be the top target and would take Justin Udy and Brian Hout with them, and that Chris Peterson's influence is helping Choate, and Choate had gotten support in key areas. I have no idea what that means, but was the most concrete Choate news to date. That's where the Boise State faithful really started analyzing Choate and his record and what kind of hire he would be. And I will tell you, I got some pretty good entertainment out of Boise State fans trying to analyze our program. And this is some of the takes they had about what the program was like before Choate got hired and how bad of a coach he must be if he's only 28 and 22 or 26. I don't even know what it is since he took over an FCS program. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting discussion on that. But I will say the prevailing thought is that nobody there liked Choate as the hire. Very few people.
When Football Scoop reported that, I was irrationally mad. I was mad at Boise State most of all. I was like, this started on December 22nd. Why are we still worried about this? Of course I'm worried about this because I love Jeff Choate. Like, I'm 2 steps away from getting a Jeff Choate like tattoo on my arm. And for Football Scoop to come out and say Jeff Choate might be their top target, I'm like, oh my gosh, just get it over already. Just like you and I are just texting each other like it's a done deal. Like it was just like we had talked about like, okay, what step are you on the grieving process right now?
Yeah.
I'm at acceptance, right? I'm actually starting to feel better. Like, okay, here's the guys I think we could replace Choate with. But you and I were going down that spiral.
Yeah, I'm getting memes queued up in my head for the social media, the Twitter account. Like, all right, what's a good meme to put out there when the news finally breaks? Choate's gone. Yeah, I settled on the sad mascot image that I found, but thank goodness I never had to use it. At this point, man, I've been kind of just robotically going through this timeline, but man, it was a roller coaster all the way, sweating bullets all the way, getting tired of it. I'm glad that you'd kind of wanted to record an episode, maybe talk about the future coaches, and I was like, man, I just don't want that bad juju right now. You were already thinking like done deal in your head. Who's going to be our next coach? I'm like, come on, man. Let's put positive vibes out there. He hasn't been hired yet.
Yeah, right.
But so the Football Scoop was definitely the most damning information for Bobcat fans.
Yeah. It felt like it was a done deal at that moment.
It really did. Like, well, Chris Peterson's involved. Choate's probably interviewed at this point. But turns out he hadn't interviewed, or maybe he had. But the next day is when BJ Rains, and I wish I had where he works, some newspaper.
I think it's Idaho Press.
Yeah, and some like bluesportsturf.com as well, or something like that. But he somehow scooped the flight tracker, a flight from Boise to Bozeman, and that was also scheduled to go from Bozeman to Eugene right afterwards. It's like, is this coincidence? It's like, there's no way that's coincidence. A private charter from Boise to Bozeman to Eugene.
Of course it's not coincidence.
No. So that breaks, and then there's like Colton Poole or Paul Schwedelson. I can't remember who did that either. Who actually went down to the Bozeman airport. Colton Poole went to the Gallatin Valley Airport and took pictures of that whole meeting there. Jeff Choate, him meeting there in the airport and having the second interview at the airport. Lasted about 3 or 4 hours, or whatever, and he went over to Eugene, Oregon, and did this, and then finally flew back to Boise. And everyone's like, "Well, which interview was longer?" Just really starting to get in the weeds on this. Like, who was the favorite? Which interview was longer? And which one, if it was longer, is that good or bad? And she went to Choate's place first. So is that like we're going to sign Choate and go tell Andy we're not getting a job, or are you going to go tell, you just all these scenarios in your head. And that leads us up to, what was it, yesterday? Where it was finally announced that
Friday, man. It was Friday afternoon.
That Choate was not the guy, but clearly the second man in line. And Andy Avalos from Oregon, defensive coordinator, got the job. Boise State alumni. Good for them. Happy for you. Thank you for not taking our coach. And that is the end of the roller coaster and the biggest sigh of relief I've had until next year when this happens again. It's going to happen every year now. I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg. Maybe not, but
yeah, I think that's we can talk about that. I think that's actually a good topic for a different podcast. But I will tell you, when I found out Jeff Choate was not hired, obviously I was happy, but I found at the same time I was sad. I was sad for Jeff Choate because I know Jeff Choate wanted to have that position.
he
And
deserves it.
Exactly. And you know, without even knowing, without even being in the locker room, he's a goal-oriented man. That he would want that for, he would want the best for all of his players. And I would assume, and this is hard to say, that the players in the locker room would want the best for Jeff Choate too. And so if he has an opportunity to go to Boise State, and honestly, let's be honest, 7 times make his salary, his base salary at Montana State, you would want that for your coach. You'd be sad, but you would want that because that's the culture he's built. So, just with the jubilation and the relief, I felt bad for the man because I know he was obviously qualified for the job. We know as fans how we feel about him. And you're just like, man, Boise State just missed out for sure. So I'm happy, but I feel for Choate at the same time. And no, I don't want him to go anywhere. And I want Montana State to pay him a ton load of money so he never goes anywhere. But, we could talk about that later. So yeah, that's where we're at right now.
It would look good for Montana State too, I think, to have a coach hired to be a head coach at a pretty damn high level too. It's not like going to UNLV or anything like that. And it's kind of funny. Like we were talking about this in the Big Sky Podcast Network Twitter group, if you will. Trying to think of all the coaches that were hired from the Big Sky to be a head coach somewhere else. It's a very small list in the last 20 years. I think we only could come up with like Paul Wolf to Washington State from Eastern and Bobby Houck to UNLV. That was it, right?
Correct.
I know some other coaches have been hired up into coordinator roles, like Bo Baldwin, but for an actual head coach from FCS straight into FBS from the Big Sky, I can only think of Paul Wolf and Bobby Houck. So it's very rare, and I think it would look really good for Montana State if it were to happen. Like, oh man, they had a superstar. MSU must be a good program. At that point, I think we could get a pretty good coach in. It's been since what? I think Coulter did some reporting on this. Coulter Nuanez, since Jim Sweeney was the last time a MSU head coach got hired away. Everyone else has been fired or quote retired. Basically retire or be fired. It's been a bad run. Like Kramer got fired, Ash got fired, Heisel might have retired as health. This is where my Bobcat fandom starts to be fuzzy because I wasn't really much of a fan at that point in time and fairly young. So, been a long time since we had a coach that other programs were actively looking at anyway.
Yeah. When you start going into the past and looking at Montana State's history, it is precedent setting that Jeff Choate would be hired away. And I think you and I can agree, like he probably will be hired away. Like if we just had to state that now, I think you and I would say that. But we're happy he's here with us at this point. And we will definitely get into the possibilities of keeping Jeff Choate around and what that might look like. But that's for another podcast.
I do want to say something too here. Cletus said something, and I know Cletus listened to the show, that I thought myself. He said that he'd really love for fans to stop thinking that Bozeman is the greatest place in the world and that any top talent not willing to take a huge pay cut to come to here must be mentally defective or greedy. I mean, he said it a little more bluntly than I would, but basically, I think Bobcat fans tend to overvalue like why a coach would want to coach at Montana State. It's like we love Bozeman, we love Montana, but it's not a destination job. It's not a place that most people want to be coaching because it means, well, number one, you're in the FCS. You're not going to get paid as much as potential other FCS coaches could even get paid. And number three, this is a pro or con, but you're going to face like the same kind of like scrutiny as a head coach in Bozeman, Montana, as you're going to in like Texas, at Texas on a much smaller scale. But you're going to have like passionate fans who are going to be, putting for sale signs in your lawn if you're not doing a good job. The boosters in your ear flapping their gums about, you need to do better. You're going to get that same kind of scrutiny in Bozeman. So, but it's a really good job. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know. People think that you're going to take a pay cut to come be head coach of Montana State. It's just like, that just doesn't ring true to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I don't want to be harsh or say anything bad about Bozeman or Montana State. It's just like, I think some fans have it built up so high in their head that it's a little bit maybe more attractive than it actually is for head coaches. Which is why you got to get guys like a Danny Sprinkle kind of guy, right? Like an alumni who's kind of a rising star. Those are the rare things, but that's like the ideal. The guys who might actually stay here for a while.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But then you got like on the other side, you had like Larry Krystoliak for the Grizz, take them to the new heights, and then he, obviously he was destined for bigger things. Ended up being the head coach in the NBA for a year or two. So you just never know. But it's hard to keep coaches at this level for a long time.
Ryan, I would love to talk about that, but we would go down something, and I'm just telling you, we need to have another episode where we can talk about just that.
All right, let's do it. Let's put it on the calendar.
All right, buddy. Hey, let's get into our Golden Coolie questions, and let's wrap this thing up. Sound good?
Sounds good, man. We're pushing up against an hour, so perfect.
Awesome, man. The first Golden Coolie question dates back to December 23rd. We actually didn't read this one. And
it was asked after we actually recorded our last episode, I'm pretty sure, or it was like the day of, one of the two. But yeah, we're getting back to it.
Yeah, from Luke Cat on Bobcat Nation says, "What is the best ski movie of all time?"
Absolutely nothing to do with anything here. Not basketball, not even Bobcat related, not Jeff Choate. Best ski movie. Yeah, we were talking a little bit about this.
It has to be Out Cold.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably tons of ski movies. Like I know that that's kind of like I don't know if he's actually talking about like ski movies. There's like those documentary ones that people like go to for like ski Warren festivals Miller. And stuff like that. Like I'm not skier. I'm like the worst Montanan. Like I don't hunt. I don't ski. I'm like garbage Montanan. So ski movies for me are definitely Hollywood movies that I've seen that are also happen to be skiing involved in them. Out Cold is got probably my top one as well. That's a pretty funny movie. I also, if Better Off Dead counts as a ski movie, I know we're talking about, you have not seen this movie. This is a 1980s John Cusack flick. It also has Booger from Revenge of the Nerds in it. So, but definitely some skiing involved with that. He tries to win his girlfriend back by skiing, and he's not a skier. And anyway, those are my top two. I'd probably put Out Cold ahead of Better Off Dead, although Better Off Dead is a pretty funny kind of dark humor kind of loser hero movie. So like John Cusack did so well in the 80s. So anyway, Out Cold. I'll agree with you. Out Cold, why not?
Right on.
They ski down a mountain drinking a beer. So
yeah, with their pants down. Like it's perfect, right?
Plus they play Weezer in that movie. So
perfect.
Always helps out, as you and I are both
Came
big Weezer fans.
2001. We were freshmen in college at that point. So it was perfect.
Perfect timing.
There you go. All right, Luke Cat, good question there, bud. Let's see. Bleeding Blue says, do you think players were following the Boise hiring saga as closely as we were? We were, especially yesterday.
Yes. Yes, I do, especially since there's not like any practice or anything right now. Like, what else are they doing? I imagine they're following just as closely. Maybe not like joining the VIP board on 24/7, the Bronco thing, gleaning for garbage information there like I did. But I imagine they're following it pretty damn close.
Well, I kind of wonder a couple things on this. One, we run the social medias of R&R, and I tend to run the Instagram, and so you follow all the players right on Instagram, and so I'm like, what are they posting? What are they posting? And so I'd always look, on the Instagram to see if I could get any kind of just like little hint from them during that 2 week saga. Nothing, nothing, nothing. So tight lipped all across there. Uh, and then I started thinking about George Choate, who plays on Montana State, is also the son of Jeff Choate, right? So how awkward was his interactions with his friends knowing what his father was going through? Or maybe, was Jeff saying, Jory, like, hey, this, I'm going to tell a team what I can tell them, but you can't tell them this. So I was wondering if he was stuck in between a hard place right there. Do I think that Boise State, do I think the players were following this as closely? Heck yes, I do. But I think they were in the know more than we were for sure.
Well, I think Jeff Choate would have been fairly transparent throughout the process. I think that's just who Jeff Choate is. He's the kind of guy who's going to tell you, like, hey, I'm gonna look at this job. I'm gonna put my hat in the ring on this. I think he's the kind of guy who's going to do that. So I think that they knew probably more along the way, and probably would definitely be part of the reason there is a lot more radio silence on it. But I'm not sure players would say much about their coach hiring for a new job anyway, in normal circumstances or anything like that. So, but I do think they had to have been following it pretty closely, because and during the meeting, I'm sure that it was made aware, because right after Choate came out with this statement, you saw all sorts of players retweet it with positive words about it. I know Tucker Rovig, Isaiah Vonze, among others, were the guys who I saw on Twitter do it. So they were following it, but I'm sure they were also more informed, and like probably told them, I'm going to put out a statement, and after that you can say whatever you want or whatever like that. So they had to have been on pins and needles though. And I never even thought about that Jory Choate angle. That must have been a little tough for him. People like trying to pry some information out of him, like, hey, what's your dad leaning? That must have been a little harder on him.
Yeah. It is cool to see all this player support come out afterwards. I mean, it just reaffirms what you already think about Jeff Choate.
I do love that guy.
Yes.
No tattoos here, but
2 steps away.
Oh man.
All right. Let's get to our buddy Chris Hammond. Who's worse, Seahawks offense or Vandal basketball's offense? Asking for a friend. I'll take that one right away.
Go for it.
Vandal basketball offense sucks, man. They're 0-9. The Seahawks were at least in the playoffs. So yeah, it's easily the Vandal. And the tribe from the north, it's not getting done, buddy. So sorry.
Yeah, they weren't very good last year, and they had that one really good player whose name I can't remember. I can kind of picture what he looked like. He had like pulled back like man bun type hair situation going on. He was a good player.
Just the guy with the man bun.
But they were not very good, and they continued to not be good. But I'm a Rams fan, so I very much enjoyed completely like shutting down the Seahawks offense, just swarming them. So, but I think the answer here has to be the Vandals basketball, even though I want to answer the Seahawks offense, because it's just a pure joy watching that Seahawks offense struggle to do anything with the greatest quarterback in the West, Russell Wilson. But, yeah, I'm going to go Vandals basketball. That's just a hot mess.
And they're getting like this really cool new stadium right now being built, and it's they're just
the Vandals,
crappiest team. Yeah, they're like the worst team in the Big Sky, but they got at least that going for them. So there it is.
They're just getting their facilities ready for that, push back to FBS.
Sorry, Brian. Sorry, Chris.
But the only thing that is not important in that is apparently being competitive.
Thorny,
shots fired.
Yeah, right. Thorny, would you do us the honors of reading the last one for us?
Foley has some strong opinions on this. I believe this hashtag Choate Mentum was coined by Bear Tycoon, a man who every single time there's a hire anywhere in the West available is pushing for Jeff Choate, pumping him up all over the place on Twitter. I think he started the phrase Choate Mentum hashtag to kind of document and encourage Boise State to hire Jeff Choate. So our buddy on the Big Sky Podcast Network, Lewis Munch, I don't have it in front of me here. I'm pretty sure that was his name. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. I don't think we've actually really met or talked or anything like that. He asks, will MSU own the Choate Mintum hashtag and take it to new heights this season? Fully take it.
Well, a little backstory before I'm trying to calm my rage just a little bit, but what our listeners don't know is Ryan and I are on this Twitter text thread between all the podcasters of the Big Sky Podcast Network. So
there must be like 20 some guys in there now. I don't really know how many people are in there, but there's a lot of activity.
Yes. And so
talkative group.
Yes, exactly. And so much so where you probably honestly need to silence your phone. But long story short, as soon as this Jeff Choate thing started going on, there's a couple of those guys, like you said, Bear Tycoon, who runs the Montana Mint. I don't want to give them too much publicity on our own podcast, but they would go out into the Twitter sphere and essentially promote Jeff Choate in the hopes that he would be hired away. So essentially, they wouldn't have to play Jeff Choate's team, aka Montana State. And so this whole time, this 2 weeks, which felt like an eon, like I said, it was like every 30 seconds, it felt like in my life, I heard the word Choate Mintum, and I was just getting so just, I'm going to back off. It was just not pleasing to me.
It was rubbing you the wrong way.
Oh,
you didn't say anything in the conversation thread, but offline you're like, I'm so mad.
I went silent. I did not respond to any of their queries, and I was going to say I wasn't going to give any of my takes because I was going to make them listen to this podcast in order to hear my opinion on any of that.
Yeah, if they made it all the way to the end, they're going to hear it.
Yes, and so any kind of Jeff Choate news, they'd be like, "Ooh, Choate Momentum" or "Choate Mintum." I was just like, "Shut up, just shut up." And they're just retweeting it, putting it out there, recreating their own stuff, just with the hopes that he just gets hired away. And so, this Choate Mintum hashtag take it. It's dead, done. It will never live. It was something a couple of those dudes tried to create and try to get behind because it was, kitschy and whatnot. Done. You're done. No, it's not. It's dead. And thank you, Ryan. Ryan put Triple X doing the what does Triple X do? What was his signature move? You tell him, Ryan. What was your thing when that happened?
What are you talking about?
when Choate was not hired.
Oh, okay. I don't even. Is that Triple X? I don't even know. I don't follow. Yeah. I don't know my wrestling at all. Yeah, there was a meme of him doing this suck it maneuver
yes.
in the wrestling arena, just this way, that way, boom, boom, you, boom. So it's the hashtag Choate Mintum. So that was the end of the Choate Mintum era, as far as I'm concerned. Is a meme ending that in its tracks.
So that thing needs to die, and it will never live again in my mind. So yeah, my hackles definitely get raised when that pops up in the Twitter conversation. So
you don't want to try and spin it into positivity about the team, and the Cats are doing really good now. Choate Mintum, we're gaining Choate Mintum throughout November. You're not gonna.
No, I don't want to give them any satisfaction of the branding that. No, I don't want that. So
fair enough. Well, there you go. I'm not even going to answer that. You answered everything that I think needs to be said about that.
Okay.
Was that cathartic for you? Are you done now? I think you've been just holding that in, and finally, yes. you told everyone what you really feel about Choate Mintum. Choate Mintum is dead. All right.
All right, man.
I think that does it, right?
No, I got to pick a winner. We got to pick a winner.
Oh, yeah.
Golden Coolie. I think I know who I'm going to send it to.
It's got to be Bleeding Blue, right?
Exactly, right?
It was the only relatively serious question in the bunch.
Woo! Got it. Nice job, Bleeding Blue. Send us your contact info, and within 1 to 2 weeks, I will send you a Golden Coolie. I promise.
We did. I'll say it. We did have a question, I think, with Joe Bobcat about women's basketball. Joe, I'm sorry. We just weren't. I'm not qualified to answer that one. That was a little too in depth for me. So we saw it. I'm not ignoring it, but I didn't feel smart enough to answer that one. So
It's above
sorry,
our
buddy.
pay grade. Sorry,
Yeah, it's
Joe.
above our pay grade. There you go. That's a good way of putting it. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us. One thing I do want to mention here, and I don't know when we're going to start this, but we're going to do a little a Twitter campaign here. We're going to put it out there that if you send us a picture of the receipt or of the ticket, whatever you want to call it, of your virtual Cat Grizz ticket, if you all start a thread on the social media page on Twitter, or you can email it on Bobcat Nation. Doesn't have to be anywhere, but anywhere we can see it, we're going to enter your name into a little drawing on our site. I'm pulling my fancy little machine over here, which is basically just nothing at all. Excel spreadsheet probably, where we'll pick out a winner, and you'll get a golden Coolie. So we thought it'd be a fun way to kind of promote the virtual tickets and kind of reward someone in the process for buying that. So look forward to that coming up soon. Thanks again for everyone for listening. Thanks again for listening, everyone. We want to thank everyone for listening as always. We want to thank Jeremiah Johnson for being our sponsor. Yet again, we love being partnered with such a great company. Please give us a follow on Twitter at RRCatcast. Find us on rrcatcast.com. You can always email us at rrcatcast@gmail.com. And please, if you like our show, we'd really appreciate you giving us a little review or a rating on iTunes or wherever you are listening to this podcast. But Foley, let's get out of here with a Go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.
All right. I got places to be.